I was born and raised in a family of potters in Cochiti, Pueblo, New Mexico. Cochiti is located between Santa Fe and Albuquerque, right off I-25. So I was born into a family of potters on our mother's side. Our mother's name is Virgil Ortiz, and our grandmother's name was Lorencita Herrera. So like as far back as I can remember, all of our great-grandmothers all worked with traditional methods and materials. And that means that we go dig all our own clay. We make, who knows how long our people have been getting the clay from the certain clay vein. And also gathering the temper and the pumice stone that we mixed with the clay. At a certain time, it takes a whole year to make this type of clay that we work with, because when we dig it out of the ground, we have to introduce ourselves. We feed the clay mother, and we state our purpose, what we're gonna do with the clay, ask permission to take the clay, and then we gather only as much as we need for a whole year, which is probably like half a truckload. Take it down, up and down the mountain. We have to get it back to our barn at home, throw it in there, and we have to let it dry out for a year, because once we take it out of the earth, it's still really damp, and it's looks like dark chocolate, right? So it's really dense, and if you try to work with it, if you like soak it in water, it doesn't release altogether. It doesn't soak thoroughly, because like it's so dense, right, and so pure. So we have to take it home, throw it in the barn, and wait for a whole year till it all dries out. And then at a certain time, then we crack it into like 1/4-inch pieces, and then slowly rehydrate it in a plastic bin. So when we're cracking up our clay, we pour some water in the bin, load up a layer of the clay, and then keep on adding the layers till we fill up that bucket. So it slowly hydrates evenly like that. So once it's sitting for about a week or so in the plastic bin, and then it starts to pull away from the bin, and that's when it's ready to be mixed with the temper. So we prepared the temper as well. Like I have a huge family. I have 49 nieces and nephews. I don't have any kids myself, but they come in very handy, right? So as soon as they get up there in age, they're able to climb the mountains and help me gather all the materials. But at the same time, I'm remembering, like reminiscing about what our grandparents did and took us up into the mountains to gather these materials in the same places that they've been doing it for a long time. But I'm trying to make it as fun as I can for my nieces and nephews, or anybody from the Pueblo that I'm trying to teach the traditional methods to. So a lot of the times, the families, the masters, it's a dying art form in Cochiti, just because of the amount of time that it takes to work with these natural materials. And a lot of the masters' families, their kids have grown up, have kids, work off the Pueblo, so it's like they don't have enough time to dedicate to this process. So what I'm trying to do is to think of a way of how to really make sure that this tradition doesn't die out. So that explains all the different types of materials I do work with. The subject matter that I create with the traditional clay, Cochiti figurative pottery was all based on social commentary. So when the railroads were being laid into our area, it brought more people, more tourists, and along with that came entertainment like operas or traveling circus sideshows. So from the historic pieces, like from the 1800s, you'll see these really cool like Siamese twins or tattooed bodies and really tripped out subject matter that you will see like in the state fair sideshows that you pay like $10 or whatever to go see the half snake, half lady. You know what I'm talking about? But that type of old school imagery. So our people, what they're doing was to capture time and make a timeline with all the new people that were being introduced to in our area. So you see a lot of opera singers, the circus characters, like I said, but now me being able, that's a dying art form. So what I'm doing now is, like, I'll tell you a quick story about when I was 6 years old. This collector, Robert Gallegos, out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, would come to do buying trips to the families that did make the pottery. And he knew me since I was 6 years old and used to buy pieces from me. But he had noticed, like, when I was about 13 or 14, that my style of figurative pottery started to change, and the subject matter and how I was painting them started to change completely with what my parents and grandparents did. And he was asking my parents, like, where the hell is this kid getting all these designs from, or what's he tripping out on, right? And my parents was just like saying he's experimenting. So he asked my parents to bring me down to the showroom in Albuquerque, which we've never been before. Went to his showroom, we walked into the show space, and we flipped out because it turned out they had the largest collection of historic Cochiti figurative Pueblo pottery, the largest collection, and all of the pieces that I was experimenting on looked exactly like that, the historic pieces, without seeing them before. So that immediate connection from me to the past, or I don't even know what it's called, like ancestral memory or something, was there. And my parents pulled me out of the showroom and said that, we didn't teach you any of these designs that you're doing, but the clay is speaking to you and through you. So listen to Clay Mother, and we want you to be aware of what happened just now. So we went back in, and having that resource of Robert Gallegos to help me look and study at all these historic figures, and that kicked me off on a revival mode. So at that point, I was 15 years old, and I knew I was going to dedicate my life to clay. And I'm not an academic person, so never went to school for anything besides high school, and it's all just trial and error, blood, sweat, and tears like everybody else, right? So as I started growing older, it was maybe 6 years ago is when I first looked at high fire ceramics. Like I never looked at them in magazines or went to galleries and stuff, but it was because of like Instagram or Periscope when that was like before Facebook Live and Instagram Live, right? I started to meet a lot of non-Indigenous ceramicists, and it was pretty cool to be able to compare our processes and learn from each other, because we would dedicate like a certain amount of time to each artist, and we just kind of jump back and forth to like their handles and learn about each other. So when it was my turn, I would take them when I go dig clay or collect all these different types of the materials. And when we fire, we use aspen wood and cedar wood and cow manure. So it was brand new to what my new friends were seeing. And I was freaking out because they were asking me like, what kind of tools do you use, like what cone you fire to, and I had no idea of the terminology. And it's always a joke because I always said, I don't know, snow cone, ice cream cone, I don't know what you guys are talking. So it was kind of funny, and I had no clue. So slowly they started to educate me about it, and then I really got interested to try to do all the different types of atmospheric firing. Like some of the people, my friends here, Augusta Smith, I worked with when I was at ASU. He taught me a lot of the soda fire and the wood fire, and like even Simon Levin, we're collaborating, and you'll see new pieces that we're collaborating on. And I could start the slideshow now. But my two main, I feel there are two main reasons I'm here in this lifetime, is to make sure that the art of making the traditional methods and materials, Cochiti pottery, stays alive, but also to tell the story of the 1680 Pueblo Revolt. Do you guys know what that is? Most people don't know, but because it's not taught in our high school, in our books, our subject books, or in school, it's America's first revolution, but nobody calls it that because of the genocide that happened to our people. And what I'm trying to do is to really educate the world using art to tell this whole story, and to get it out in the public, and to let everybody know that we're still here, we're still creating and doing our art. So that's why I created a timeline, a storyline, a movie script of the Pueblo Revolt happening in 1680, and also simultaneously happening in a 2180 time dimension, happening simultaneously but telling the same story. And the reason I did that was because I was infatuated with Star Wars when I was like 7 years old. I have my first sales, and I go run to the stores and buy action figures. So I knew exactly what all these characters did, what kind of ships they were in, and where they're from, and all that. So I developed this whole storyline talking about the 1680 Pueblo Revolt, created 19 groups of specific characters that represent 19 groups of Pueblos that are left in New Mexico today. So that's why you see all this Native futurism in my work, and that's my way to reach out to the next generation to be able to get them more interested in it. Here's some pictures of my family. We lost both our parents to cancer, and these are some of my nieces and nephews and sisters that are currently working in clay. So earlier I was talking about like how we gather all the materials together, and we really need the help to do all that, especially for the wild spinach, because the wild spinach plant takes like about 2 weeks to make. We have to go and gather all the, once the wild spinach blooms its purple flowers, then that's like an alarm to go harvest them. So my nieces and nephews get together and we pick like 8 garbage bagfuls, the 33-gallon size of just the leaves only. Take them back to our home. We put them in huge pots of boiling water and just continuously boiling them for like 7 days. And slowly they start to fall apart. And then we have to get a cotton rag and strain them and get the juice, because that's what we're after. After 7 days, slowly it thickens up, and then we combine them into one pot. And at a certain point, I could take it indoors and put it on a stove when it's about half a gallon left. And after boiling it for 2 weeks, if you accidentally burn it at a certain point, like when you try to use this paint to paint on a pottery, it repels it. It doesn't work, so you lose that whole batch. So we prepare a whole batch, and it takes a year to dry as well. So once it's fully cooked, then we distribute them onto corn husks, and that's how we dry them. So like at the 6-month mark, it's like feels like taffy texture, but at the year mark, then it's like Jolly Ranchers. So we crush them, take little pieces off, rehydrate them, and that's what we use to do our black paint. Our traditional colors are black, white, and red. So that's just the clay coming out of the earth, so it looks like dark chocolate. It takes about 3 hours to fire our traditional firing, so it gets really hot really quick and cools down really quick. So you have to have that anything that you're making the same size. And I only fire one piece at a time, and we fire all of our pots upside down and our figures standing up. And what you'll see in the next slide is how we build. It's like on a grate off the ground, like maybe 8 inches on a shelf, and so we put the piece there, then we put chicken wire over it, like leaving maybe 8 inches around the piece. And then that holds the cow manure, the dried cow manure around it, and you build it like it looks like an igloo. And then we put the fuel around that and ignite it from all sides, so that I need help again to fire this, because like once you start the fire, we want the smoke and all the flames to go straight up so that it pulls all the heat, and it doesn't let the heat touch the piece. So once the cow manure is ignited and burning in a huge fireball, then that's when we stop feeding it. And the cow manure burns from the outside inward, and that's our kiln. So at that point, you're just praying not to hear like a thud or a crack, because like the whole process to get one piece done is usually like about 2.5 months. I would say like the larger figures will at least take 4 months to make. And this is at a certain point when before, like our clay is red, right? So once we have the piece all made and dried and sanded, then I stick it in the oven, warm it up like I'm making blueberry muffins, like like 350 usually. And we just have to get it hot so that we apply the white clay slip, which is bentonite, I think people call that. So we just slowly add layers and layers, and it's usually about 10 layers, so it turns completely white. It evaporates and sticks to the piece, and it starts to fill in the porousness of the piece. And once it's completely cooled down, take it out, and then we rag polish it. And once it goes from a super matte to a super glossy surface, just by rag polishing it, but you cannot touch a part of the piece if it's going to be white, because like no matter how many times you wash your hands, we still have oils in our hands. So if you accidentally touch a piece that's supposed to be white, and then one firing is the last process. And once you fire it, you'll see like a smudge or either your fingerprint on it. And like my nieces and nephews, when they're helping us, like I take a break to make them pizza or something, but they know they're not supposed to touch it. But like after the next day when we fire it, you see tiny little fingerprints. I'm like, oh, I told you guys not to. But it's also just a way of how they're learning, right? Sample of when we're firing, I usually fire with my family members. And we also use, like my nephew made us steel cans. So like if it's like during the winter months, then I'll use the one on the right. A sample of what Cochiti Pueblo pottery looks like. And Cochiti is known for the storyteller figure, which is a mother carrying all the grandkids and also animals. The middle figure on the right-hand side was I made when I was 6 years old. My mom bought him, and like I told you guys, I went to go buy action figures, right? And then this is a sample of my work that is very traditional from Cochiti. So all of our designs are based on earth's elements. So incorporating not only the wild spinach design, the clouds, the thunder, the lightning, the kiva steps. And this is like, again, like I told you, is a dying art form. And I wanted to know exactly how I could give voice back to the clay, because when the non-Indigenous people came into our areas, a lot of our artwork was destroyed. The Pueblo people were accused of sorcery and witchcraft. So like me having that whole past life experience, if you want to call it, like I wanted to give voice back to the clay. So this is one of my favorite pictures that is taken by a man named Ben Whittick. And he would go around documenting all the artwork, and that's where those were pieces from the 1800s that you could recognize. They look like opera singers or circus performers. I challenged my family to pick a piece and recreate it, and then we turned it into a recreation of that photo. So yeah, that was most important to me, to make sure that they understood our ways of making the artwork. But also, I wanted to keep the whole group together, and I had displayed it in Santa Fe, and Cartier Foundation out of Paris bought all the 23 sets, so now it resides in Paris. It's kind of cool to do that with your family. And then also the Taboo series is an ongoing series, and it's really taking, again, the revival of what we did, but also taking it to using it to talk about hard subjects like cancer or politics or LGBTQ community, right? So if you have a piece of art in front of you, it's a lot easier to discuss these topics. So this is one pot, and you can see it's the politics coming out. And I had made this one in 2016, and it was during the Dakota Access Pipeline that was happening. And before that inauguration, it's one pot at different angles, but that was kind of my prediction of what was going to happen. The far right side riding the oil pipelines and the snakes coming to bite him from the backside. The middle one is when the snakes infiltrated his body and then slowly eating him from the inside out. The fracking that goes on, and then also the last pot image is a woman's hand taking him out. And this one's called Cyberbully, and he's sitting on the can tweeting at 5 a.m. So that was just like another commentary of, like, you know, the classic hairstyle, but also the Twitter as the tattoo on his lower back. Also predicting that it would be Twitter that would help take him down. This is Strength, and it was dedicated to my parents and my sister that passed from cancer. But every time our dad would go get the radiation administered, he would come back with another mark on his body. So he was like, check out my new tattoo. And it was where they're giving him radiation, but if you were to look at it from the side and lay it on its back, that was him going into the MRI machine. So if you see, you can imagine the piece laying down. But the design is called V. May's design, and it's the never-ending quest for a cure. It's just amazing how it all comes together, because we had released this piece, and it was in King Galleries in Scottsdale, and a group of like 15 women had came to see it. So they were talking amongst themselves, and they finally came to me. And it turned out they introduced themselves, and they're all survivors. So I told them our stories, and they shared theirs, and it just really joined us together. So like, you know, letting art do that is like, art is therapy, art is healing. I worked with a bunch of veterans that dealing with their PTSD, and they explained it to me about like how they felt about being pulled and torn apart. So that's how he created this piece. You turn on the back, it's like a Rorschach kind of design. of them saluting each other, and then also the depression that they go through. This figure was dedicated to LGBTQ community, and this person, his name is Wewa, and he was taken in the late 1800s in DC. It became an iconic of the Two-Spirit people. I created this jar to show like the indigenous community how we hold the Two-Spirit people in high regards, but also to include icons from the 80s. So there's like Pete Burns from Dead or Alive, Boy George, Grace Jones, RuPaul. All of them were celebrated, and then now everybody's fighting to even live again in this time. But I was lucky enough to meet all these performers. It was pretty cool to meet them. But you'll just see how the work talks about all. It always tells a story. This one is called "Hate is a Drag," which it is. The nighttime when we go out, looking at all the different go-go dancers, latex-clad peeps. And then slowly I started to really design it, pieces looking like fashion work. The more I did it, the more I found out how my classic designs from our family pottery transferred onto garments. Ended up working with Donna Karen in 2003, so I helped design her spring collection. So it's like a classic example of how these garments adapt to our designs. And it was even really cool because when we released the whole fashion line, I was able to give a lecture to all of the fashionistas that had no idea about Cochiti Pueblo pottery. So I showed them like where all these designs came from. And it was awesome to redirect them back to our people and check out more of their work. Then I started combining it with Photoshop and my models, or my family, my friends. So combining all of the fashion work, the Photoshop, the models, using them on garments, going through the whole pandemic, I made a line of masks. This was incredible because the head model was Lilu. You guys know Fifth Element? Milo Jovovich. But we had, I was instructed to take my pieces for this ad campaign for Donna Karen, and we went to, I can't remember, it was in California, but it ended up being Frank Sinatra's house. And my friend that was helping me take the pieces in to get photographed, he came out, I was like, "You're not gonna believe who this is, who the head model is." And we went in there and it turned out to be her. I just about passed out. But she's the first supermodel to wear my clothing. And then it spreads. I mean, the reason why I'm showing you all these different types of mediums is that, like, don't hold yourself back, just keep on trying your design work, whatever. I mean, you see how it transforms to hospitality design, something that you'll see in a Vegas penthouse. So it's like going down to duvet covers, the mirrors, the chairs, the headboards, the bed, everything, lithography, and it's always going back to the whole storytelling of the 1680 revolt, working with glass and also combining them with ceramics. Some samples of these guys here. And so now that I started to reach out and combine all these different mediums, I was like, okay, like how the hell do I educate everybody about it and like get the next generation's attention? It's like, oh, okay, cool, a feature film, duh, I'll do that. So that's how I started to combine everything and really go at the whole storyline. We get all the shots together, take them into Photoshop, and really start to develop the characters even more. And like keeping the cards close to my chest, because if you show it to a huge movie company, I wanted to keep all the design work and all the characters, keep them as keep their integrity as like how I designed them, and which is better, and it gives me more time to really take the time to get the trademarks and copyrights and register marks, because if you don't do that, I mean, we all have to protect our intellectual property, and I highly suggest everybody does that, because then watch what you put on the internet, because most likely you'll get ripped off. So if you learn how to play the game, you protect yourself. It's a little bit more money, but still, you can do things with confidence. So bouncing back and forth, like having the models on the pots back and forth the same way as these pictures are. And then learning how to work with foam fabrication, like, YouTube University taught me that. So like all of these costumes, none of them have existed before. So the more you do it, the more creative you can get. And you're gonna have fun when you put on all these costuming for Halloween especially. I was able to collaborate with Nona Hendricks. Getchy, yeah. So she was one of the original members from LaBelle. So we worked at Kennedy Center and the Met, and along with like some of the ceramics as well. So don't be afraid to try anything with what you guys want to do. I always tell the students I work with or my nephews, like, no more imaginary hurdles. They were never there to begin with, and that's just what we all do, is like put doubt in ourselves. So this was when I went to Wright's Ranch and worked for the first time with taking it to the wood fire. Some people, and I really encourage all of you guys to try to collaborate with people. You learn a lot more. And this is an example with Augusta that we did out at Wright's Ranch. Grayson Ferrer, I never did raccoon fire before, but that tripped me out when he threw it in a bucket of water. I was like, what are you doing? But it was pretty cool just to get all the different types of surfaces that we got. A beater named Elias J. Night Afraid. I carved into the high fire ceramics, and he's known for his beadwork. So these are some of the characters that I'm releasing this summer, and they're called the Recon Watchmen. Started working with steel for outdoor sculptures. Then also Sujin Joy, Ben Shane, when I was lucky enough to go up to the Archie Bray for a visiting artist. So while we're there, we had fun just bringing everybody together and really trying to learn from each other and pushing each other's at the same time. But a lot of cool artwork is done now. So now they're going to be with me in more museum shows. Some barware with Chris Casey out of Albuquerque. This was like an incredible story I wanted to share with you guys really quick. When I was coming back, Simon had set up a meeting with myself for me to meet June. And I stopped in at his hometown, and it was amazing. It was like meeting like Prince, Madonna, and Jackson of ceramics. But it was totally cool, and I thought, he showed us everything. Trevor, his studio manager, he instructed him to take us through it and answer all the questions that I had, because he knew I worked with a lot of students, and he told me to share all the knowledge and information. So my first question was like, how do you go that big? How do you prevent it from cracking? Like the whole process. So he really showed us how to do it, and for all the different workshops I do, that's what I try to do, to show everybody like the base work that he does. And I'll be doing that demonstration tomorrow and on Friday, and I'll share that with you guys in person. Some of the studio at the Peter Volka studio at the Archie Bray. So we went as big as we could, taking the inspiration from June Kaneko, but also I've always wanted to go really big as I can, but having the resources at the Bray and that support and the whole family. And my friend Justin Reese came with me, and he throws, so he was helping me make the base for all of these pieces, and we never went that big before, and we just pushed each other's and went as we tried as much as we could. And again, just to have all the machinery, the lift work, all that you see is like amazing to have that opportunity. So we took it to the next level as far as we could in 2 months. And then, like I was telling you guys earlier, a collaboration with Simon Levin. Like, he's never worked with color before or underglazes or anything, because he does wood fire. So I was like, dude, just try it. Come on, like, I need some shields to go with these busts. So he ended up going for it and working with color, and he fired them with gas kiln. So again, we're just kind of learning from each other and like making it match. And Sujin Joy, she totally finished the pieces, because like they were still drying when I left the Bray. So we were FaceTiming a lot, and I was showing her how I did the underglaze work, and then she incorporated her style of the drippy method, and it worked really well for this collaboration. So it's, and then I asked her to take a picture. She was very shy to take a picture, but it's like, I promise I won't show a picture of you. So I did. But it's just funny like how it all came out. So all of these pieces are going to be released during this summertime. When we're the last day when I was leaving the Bray, but I plan on going back and keeping those friendships and all the work that we made are super important to me. Another thing that Justin Reese and I we're doing a podcast that's going to be released soon through the Brickyard Network, and it's called Shot Colors. So be on the lookout for that. And then also I just released a brand new book with Charles King Galleries, and it shows all the different processes and everything that I just talked about.